Welcome to the Age is Irrelevant podcast with your host, Helen Fritsch. Helen is a 60-plus, lifelong competitive athlete, flight attendant, published fitness model, writer, IFBB bodybuilding pro, and certified wine specialist who believes that your age is irrelevant to pursue goals, dreams, and desires. Are you a woman in her 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond who still has a burning desire to pursue a dream or a passion? Are you thinking about starting a new chapter in your life, but you're hesitant, thinking that you might be too old or just don't know where to begin? The Age is Irrelevant podcast is a podcast devoted to women who want to defy the odds, smash barriers, and redefine happiness and success after 40. It's time to make a difference. There is no need to dread blowing out that added birthday candle every year. A new movement is slowly taking momentum, where being over the hill just isn't relevant anymore. Age labels are being thrown out the window, and women are rediscovering the strength within themselves to make a difference, not only within their own lives, but also touching and inspiring the lives of other women. Join Helen as she and her guests discuss all aspects of aging after 40 and how to make the aging process and those twilight years more rewarding, exciting, and fun.
Hello, and welcome to the Age is Irrelevant podcast. I'm your host, Helen Fritsch, and this is episode 109. Now, before we get into this episode, I have some very exciting news. It's official. I am adding author to my resume. I wrote a book called Life Lessons from the Overhead Bin. This is to every woman over 50 who's ever wondered, is there more to life? The answer is a resounding yes. This book is for you, the dreamers, the doers, the women who are ready to rewrite the rules and make the second chapter of life the best one yet. I'm sharing my journey, 40 years as an international flight attendant, my reinvention as a professional masters bodybuilder, and launching a podcast in my 60s, all to prove one thing. Age is just your takeoff point. It's never too late to pivot, to dream bigger, to become who you were always meant to be. This book is equal parts memoir, motivation, and a message to every woman. Your next chapter starts now. You can grab a copy today. Let's fly higher together. And it is sold on Amazon. So now, as far as the show is concerned, today's guest is nothing short of iconic, a trailblazer who redefined what it means to be strong, vibrant, and unstoppable at any age. I am joined by the legendary Tosca Reno, New York Times bestselling author, creator of the Eat Clean Diet Revolution, fitness model, and former editor-in-chief of Oxygen magazine. But beyond the titles and the accolades, Tosca is a radiant force of resilience and reinvention. From rebuilding her life after devastating loss to becoming a beacon for women in midlife, her journey is one of fierce transformation and grace. In this raw and inspiring conversation, we talk about everything: overcoming grief, reigniting your passion in midlife, fueling your body with purpose, and showing up powerfully in the second and best chapter of your life. If you've ever doubted whether your dreams have an expiration date, this episode is your wake-up call. So grab your favorite tea, lace up your sneakers, or just settle in, because this is one conversation you don't want to miss.
Hi, Tosca. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Helen. Nice to be here. Fantastic.
I'm so thrilled. We were just talking just a few minutes ago prior to recording, and you have been such a big part of my fitness journey, especially you and Oxygen magazine, which we're going to be talking about. For my listeners, she is a powerhouse. She's a pioneer, and the reason millions of women picked up a dumbbell and dared to take up space. Today on the show, I am sitting down with the iconic Tosca Reno, best-selling author, clean eating queen, fitness inspiration, and the woman behind the revolutionary Oxygen magazine. From transforming her life in her 40s to building an empire with her late husband, Robert Kennedy, Tosca's story is one of grit, grief, and glorious reinvention.
Oh,
We're talking fitness, menopause, resilience, and what it really takes to live your best life at any age. So grab that green juice or your favorite protein shake, and we're going to dive into the raw, the real, and the radiant journey of Tosca Reno.
wow. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you, Helen. Your energy is gorgeous, I can tell.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So, what I like to do with all my guests is start from the beginning and just tell us about where you were born and tell us about your childhood growing up.
All right. I was born to Dutch immigrant parents who were one of the 2 million who came over after World War II from the Netherlands to start a new life either in Canada or in Australia. So my parents chose Canada and landed in Quebec, which was a bit of a surprise to both of them because of the amount of snow that was present. They came in the wintertime. And my sister is 11 months older than me, and I came very quickly afterwards, as you can tell by doing the math in your head. My mother was not super thrilled to be pregnant so soon afterwards, also being very homesick for her home country. So she, realizing she was pregnant with another child so quickly, she chose the name Tosca, my name, because it comes from the opera, the Latin opera, so the Italian opera, and it means the beloved. And so she'd hoped that the name would sort of make up for the way she was feeling about having.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's very
And
sweet.
so yeah, my young life was very interesting because my parents spoke Dutch and French before they spoke English. So I was actually not able to attend kindergarten when we moved to Ontario ultimately because at 5 years old I couldn't speak English.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had to learn fast.
Well, and as a child, I grew up in Europe and even it lived in Mexico City. And once I think as a child, you are able to pick it up pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was it's something I'm not sorry for understanding because even now I can speak French and Dutch.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's kudos to you.
Thank,
Fantastic.
thank you.
And so your schooling, were you involved in sports at all when you were young?
Yes, so my parents were very much into skating, learning. Of course, that's something that the Dutch do. So, figure skating, a little bit of speed skating, and soccer. Soccer was my passion, swimming. So, my father would teach us swimming. He was a swim instructor at the YMCA, and we would just go. That was just a known thing that the weekends were going to be spent at the Y swimming. And I still remember him picking me up not knowing how to swim and just picking me up by the bathing suit and chucking me in the deep end. And I'm like, I don't think I know how to do this yet. But came to be a good swimmer and eventually an open water swimmer and then doing triathlon as well. So I love it.
Wow.
And then soccer was my passion. So in high school, I learned how to play soccer. I was kind of a tomboy. And I was always center half because of speed. I loved to run and I was fast. And I found myself enjoying being, the sweeper, going between defense and forward and getting the ball in. And I earned most valuable player for all the years that I played while at high school.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Did you attend college?
I did. So in Canada, we call it, well, you could do college or university. College is more for trades, university is for the professional degrees. And so I was interested in English because I was very much a student of the written word and books and had already won some writing awards, even cash prizes for writing, and had that distinction when I graduated from high school, as well as being unanimously voted the valedictorian for my graduating class. So
Wow.
yes, so I definitely did do what we call undergrad, got my BSc from Queen's University, and yeah, enjoyed school, but interesting things happened as life evolved.
Oh, well, now I'm intrigued. You'll have to fill us in.
Well, actually, it's interesting because I don't really get to talk about this part very much, but I was one of the first female drug reps
out of university. So in the 80s, that was beginning to be a thing where there were pharmaceutical drug salespersons. That's what I was hired as. And I was hired by Upjohn. And what you would do, well, we went through very thorough schooling. I remember going to the province of Quebec and being housed for 4 weeks learning drugs, anatomy, physiology, drug interactions, very intense. And then you go out and you're a drug sales rep. But being a female drug sales rep in the early days in Canada was sometimes a dangerous business. And so I was beginning to wonder if this was the path for me, and then fortuitously became pregnant with my first child. And that sort of brought me home to care for her, and then built, a family following my then husband from place to place. He was with Imperial Oil, so there's a lot of travel involved. And I sort of left a professional career on the table and raised my family. And underneath it all, there was an undercurrent beginning to develop. Maybe it had always been there, I don't know. But my first husband was violent with me. And so after 17 years of being married to him, after raising the children as much as I could, I decided that I couldn't go on living like that anymore and always feeling in danger of my life. Uh, so I decided before I divorced him, let me go back to school and let me get another professional degree. And so I got it's funny, it's interesting because there was a hiring a frenzy going on to hire more teachers. And so I thought, okay, well, I'd love to be a mature student. Let me see if that will work for me. So I went ahead and applied for to go to a Bachelor of Education college at York University here in Toronto. Uh, and it's interesting because I missed the deadline by one day, but you got to hear this coincidence, Helen. You've got to hear this story because the fact that I missed it by a day meant that I had to wait another year. And at that point, there was a really big hiring frenzy to get teachers on, and especially mature students. So I was then in that BEd program from 1999 to 2000. And in my grade one classroom, one of my students was Robert Kennedy's daughter. And that's how I met Bob Kennedy.
Oh, wow. So the
Yes.
universe was looking out for you.
The universe was looking out for me. And so I met Robert. I didn't know very much about his story, but I was also at the same time pursuing the divorce of my husband because there had been just one too many events that, there was a lot of abuse, let me just say. Excuse me. So, yeah, so going to school was my ticket out. And then what's interesting is my ticket out, but then I met Robert and I didn't know who he was. I mean, I had no clue who he was. And I was still in getting my training as a teacher. And some of the students in my classroom, I told them the story about how he had left me a note on the desk of the teacher in grade one, namely me. He'd left a note for me saying, I need to speak to you. I need to speak to you. I know nothing, Helen. I mean, I know nothing. Pardon me. And I said, oh, there's this Robert Kennedy guy who is trying to get a hold of me amongst my other student teachers. And they're like, are you kidding? Do you know who he is? Like, no, I have no idea who he is. And they filled me in. And I got the idea that, oh, he's somebody in the bodybuilding and fitness industry. But all I knew about fitness was I was trying to take my health back and started to run from being a very obese 204-pound woman to let me try
Oh,
this because I have to change my life. Yeah. So then one day Robert says to me on the playground, he's out there with his child and I'm out there as a student teacher. And he says, so what do you do for fitness? I don't know him. I don't know who he is. And I say, oh, I run on the treadmill. I'm like, I'm really working hard. And he laughed at me. He just laughed. Oh, outright. I said, well, it's hard for me. And he said, look, if I had a dime for every person who said they managed their weight through running, I would be a wealthy man. He said, I'm not. So we began to have a dialogue about fitness and training. And then it was like he just dropped the gauntlet and said, well, I have a plan for you. I have an idea if you're willing to accept the challenge. Okay. What's the challenge? He said, I'd like to train you and you compete in a bodybuilding contest. So this was the year 2000. I competed in the year 2001 in Vegas on stage as a bodybuilder, Helen. Okay, like if you look at my proportions, I have long levers. It was hard for me to
Same,
sculpt muscle.
same.
Yeah. So kudos to you because you're a professional. But regardless, it was not so much the outcome, it was the process that was intelligent wellness for me, if you will. Because at the time, I was looking also to shed weight and to transform myself, my life. And Robert saw things in me that I could not see for myself.
Wow.
He could see deeper. He could see if I were a little tiny sunflower seed and the sun was beating down, Robert would be the sun and I was the seed. And I flourished under his tutelage and guidance. And even my first time out on stage competing in obviously a field that it's not really my forte, I did place fifth as a complete novice. Funny story about that because we're in Vegas. I think we're at the Pink Flamingo Hotel or something. And you know how it goes, Helen. Like I was new to the whole game. I get announced that I'm a winner in my category. And Robert and I get into the elevator to go up and change because we're going to have a steak dinner post competing. And at the last minute, a hand sticks through the elevator door, stops the door, and big Ronnie Coleman walks in. And he looks at me and he goes, wow, check out the abs. And of course, my abs popped after the contest. I always had trouble getting my abs to sculpt. My back was great, my butt was great, my legs were great, but lower abs, ugh. Anyway, wouldn't they? They just popped right there, and I'll never forget that.
That is so funny. How old were you at this time?
At the time, I was 41. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the women on stage with me, most of them had not had children and were quite young. They were half my age. So, Helen, I kind of think, Bob and I talked about this quite a bit, and I kind of think that it opened the door for women of my age to compete at large. And you said something instructive at the beginning where women picked up a dumbbell and dared to take space. And that really struck me because that was absolutely true for me.
I think it's true for a lot of women. I've been an athlete my entire life, but you and I are pretty close. I'm 68. I think you're 66. I think you're just a few years younger than me.
Yeah, I'm 66. Yeah.
Um, but lifting weights back then, I mean, I'd go to the gym, but it wasn't a thing. You'd go through the machines and this and that, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, finally, when I was in my mid 50s and I saw 60 coming, quite quickly, I thought, what can I do? I want to look like those girls on the cover of Oxygen magazine. What do they do? Literally, that's what I was saying. And
Yeah.
people were just like, you should look into bodybuilding. I'm like, okay. And I looked into it and I was literally horrified.
Yes.
The strict diet, I
Yeah.
hear I'm a certified wine specialist. That's my hobby. And so at the time, I'm working at a wine shop part-time. I'm a flight attendant. And so I'm flying around. I fly to Europe. I'm drinking wine in France and Italy. And then I'm working at this wine shop. So I'm having wine like every day. And I'm like, I can't give up wine. So I literally put that on the shelf for like 6 months. And
Yeah.
then once again, just like you with Robert, the universe just tapped in and said, "Okay, I need to get you back on this ball." And I walked into the gym one day, trained with a friend who just happened to be a bodybuilder, who just happened to have a client, that she was training. And the next thing I knew, I was being talked into doing a show that was a month away. Now we all know that
Ah,
you can't train for a show in a month, but
no.
I was very naive and I'm like, well, I can do anything in a month. And so literally I'm 56 and I compete in this show in Charlotte, North Carolina. Didn't tell anybody. I was like, I just can't, I can't have anybody I know in the audience. And the same thing, I was 56 and I competed in this 35 plus bikini category.
Oh my
And
God.
I came in third and but the transformation that I saw in my body in just a month's time
Yeah.
was incredible. And I thought, I think I like this. And so I just thought, I would do it again. And I want to do it again. And, I just started, competing in all these different shows. And finally, on my 60th birthday, I won a big national show in Pittsburgh
Oh,
and,
nice.
and turned pro. But so your whole story I resonate with. I mean, the whole thing, because it literally, physically, emotionally, mentally changes your life.
Yeah, it really does. And I was looking for the change, but I didn't know the format of the change. So what I did to realize who I wanted to be was I aspired to become the women that I saw on the other side of the gym, not in the cardio theater, but over there with the weights, where their bodies were toned and healthy and strong. And I just saw myself as that person and saw myself as someone in process to become what I was envisioning for myself, which is how we realize actual change. We don't say, I want that, or I'm trying to, or I'm too fat, or I'm not okay. You say, this is who I am becoming. I am in process. I am working to become. And I said that to myself over and over. And I said in my head, never thinking I would get it, you're going to be on the cover of Oxygen magazine. You are going to be an Oxygen cover girl. I didn't even know what it meant to become one. I just knew that I was willing to do whatever it took.
And once again, things come to fruition.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's fascinating.
So, how did you and Robert come up with the idea for Oxygen?
Well, oxygen was already beginning to be, if you will, breathed into existence. But together, we build oxygen into that destination for women like yourself and myself, women of all ages, frankly, who were looking for a place to belong, looking for a place to learn how to transform. Now, I think the word transform and heal are kind of similar, like transform better because it's a promise of what's to come. But this is what women were looking for. I knew I was looking for that. And Robert, when he challenged me to do the first bodybuilding contest, I think he did it to show me the ropes, to show the dedication it took, to show the layers of commitment, the kind of training, learning to value my body. I remember him putting me in front of a mirror in the gym, and he said, take your shirt off. And of course, I'm in a jog bra and shorts, and he's, take it off. We need to look at this here. And he's pointing out to me what is happening with my body that I, as the owner of that 40-year-old body, had like zero clue. But this man was painting a picture for me through which I could envision a self that was far greater than I had ever imagined. And so he said, through this journey, it's that story I want you to tell for Oxygen readers. And he, again, issued me this challenge. He basically said, write a monthly column. I don't care what it is. I don't care what you call it. Write a monthly column. And it became Raise the Bar. And it was the most widely read column in Oxygen magazine for all the years that Oxygen was in existence. And it was a place where my voice really took shape, and it was of service to women and some men, but mostly women who were looking to walk that path with me.
You're absolutely right. I think one thing I loved about Oxygen is that it was so well rounded, because not only like did you have that column, but there was workouts in there, there were diets in there, there were recipes in there, there were transformational stories. I was honored to be in Oxygen magazine as one of the women to watch. Um,
Yes.
and I'll never forget, because, we would run to the mailbox every month to get our bodybuilding magazines and Oxygen magazine. I couldn't wait for it
Yes.
to come in the mail. And when I got noticed that the magazine was live, I couldn't wait for the mail. I had to run to the grocery store and I'm like scanning the grocery store in the magazine section looking for this magazine. And I was just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So anyway, yeah, super, super thrilled. But that magazine, I know for a fact, has changed lives of so many women,
Yes.
and it just really has helped reshape the narrative around strong and muscular women. I mean, as far as, I'm not talking muscular as in really big, giant, bulky. I'm just
No.
talking like strong, muscular women. When you look at a woman in the gym and you see, just like what you saw back then, that they were strong and toned, you're like, okay, that's the woman I want to become.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Not for me, the skinny, twiggy, drugged out look that was so popular then in the fashion magazines.
Right.
I wanted to be that healthy because I had this European heritage with my parents in the background always saying, you got to be strong, you got to be strong, you got to stand up to the world. So,
What were some of the early challenges in starting a woman-focused fitness magazine?
um, the early challenges were, Helen, I was literally swimming upstream as a 40-something fitness individual. I had no name to myself. And I also, because the little undercurrent here is that Robert and I, after I divorced my first husband, we were having or beginning to have a relationship, and we had very strong feelings for each other. But he swore to me, he said, "This is not something that we're going to lead with anywhere because I want you to work for this. I'm going to make it hard for you." The very first shoot I did for him, we shot over 100,000 pictures, and he didn't keep any one in which I look like Lady Di, and that's it. But it was a process. So he pushed hard, and the challenges were to keep the authenticity because you and I both know that a competitive physique on the cover of Oxygen magazine is one thing, but that is like a brief flash in the pan. And while many may aspire to that, tomorrow it's over after you eat your first donut. So we wanted to present an authentic way of keeping women engaged in their own wellness journey from a realistic standpoint, not the drug-induced, insulin-induced, synthol, testosterone bodybuilding type he-man, she-man. In fact, Bob would have conversations with Arnold about, you got to stop what's happening in female bodybuilding at the Arnolds because the women are looking like men. We have to stop this. That's not bodybuilding. And so I'm pretty sure that those conversations helped Arnold change the way he looked at things with regard to female competitors. But it began to normalize the conversation in these magazines about training. And literally, I think the timing was so good, Helen, that there were little problems in the beginning. There were very few problems in the beginning. It was just like, can we fight off the women who want to get on the cover? You know, I
Right.
remember being at the Arnold's once and going into the ladies' room, the restroom, and somebody followed me, and a woman followed me and got in the cubicle beside me and threw her underwear with her address and phone number on the underwear. Please give this to Bob. Like, yeah, I don't think so.
Oh my God.
I don't know who that was, but anyway, yeah. So, in the beginning, being in that very exciting time was just incredible. And then the world had a dramatic challenge when it came to publishing, not just books, but magazines. And that was in 2008 when there was an economic crash and we began to see the iPad coming in and the world of the internet and the world of easily accessible information through Google and such. And, if you weren't keeping up with the times, you were going to fall behind the times. And unfortunately, that is what happened with all of Bob's magazines. He had a suite of magazines that were A-rated magazines, meaning we had distribution of over 800,000 verified, authenticated copies of these magazines, whether it was Muscle Mag, whether it was Eating Clean, whether it was Oxygen, or even the specials. These were all verified sales. But because for better or for worse, Robert didn't keep up with the times. He was a man 20 years my senior. And the economic crash really, really changed things. Yeah.
Yeah, it changed things for a lot of us, that's for sure.
Yes. Yes.
I do remember when Oxygen that decided that they were going to be going digital and that the physical, magazine that you can hold in your hand was, going away. Very sad day, I think, for
Can
me as
I
well as so many others, right?
can I share what happened so that you know? So
Yes.
so you know that Robert passed quite suddenly from cancer in April of 2012. And in his passing, there were many things that were unknowns to me. There was a lot that he didn't share, but he had handed over the business to me. Now, I am just the talent and the writer. I'm the author. I'm a New York Times bestselling author by now. I founded the Eat Clean Lifestyle. I've sold millions of copies of my books, but he was my manager. And into the grave, he took many of the secrets, which included that he had been insolvent for the 5 years leading up to his passing. So when he handed the reins over to me, I hired the financial accountants to do what's called a forensic accounting so I could understand, follow the money. That was the advice I got, follow the money, because I didn't know anything about it. And in that process, which took about a year, we discovered that he had been insolvent, which meant that he wasn't able to pay the bills at RKP Publishing, and that literally every book that I had ever sold, and there were millions at the time, 3.5 million, it was the royalties on those that I wasn't getting that he was using to try to keep the company afloat. So I got a call in June of 2013 from the accountants, and they said, you're going to need to sit down. We've got some information for you. Okay, so tell me what's up. Okay, we're going to have to bankrupt the business. So I had to pull bankruptcy on Robert Kennedy Publishing. That meant selling the magazines to active interest media. We had bids, but the one that felt the best was active interest media. At the same time, they said, yes, and also you made, I'm not sure if we can say numbers, you can edit it out if you want to. At that time, $25 million with the sales of your books, and there is this much of it left.
Oh my gosh. Zero.
Zero. But I didn't know any of this, right? So I I'm forced now then to sell the magazines, and active interest media took over. I stayed on for a year as a consultant, but it was a very poor relationship right from the beginning. And quickly they went to digital. And I've heard this many, many times. Everybody tried to be Oxygen. Everybody wanted to be Oxygen. Even the cover girls tried to be the Oxygen cover girls. It was never the same. Never the same. It's a refrain I've heard over and over again. But time marches on, and we can't stay in a victim story. We have to move on. And so ultimately, Muscle Mag was killed, and Eating Clean was killed, and Oxygen remains, sort of for better or for worse, in a digital state. Yeah.
Wow. That's very, very interesting and devastating at the same time. I'm sure that you were overwhelmed by all
I was
this
on my
news.
knees. I was on my knees. Yes.
How did you find the strength during this really difficult chapter in your life?
It was difficult enough, starting with in 2011, Robert's stepson dying. And he was a 24-year-old young man. So he had died. And then Robert died in 2012 from cancer.
Mm.
And then the business dies a year later, and my business was tanked with it. And, on and on and on. So initially, I had no gas in the tank to grieve or to even begin to comprehend what was happening to me. The repercussions were so big. And to find the strength, the two things I could do very, very well were sticking with my Eating Clean because I knew it, I had built it, it was my baby. I never abandoned it, I never sold it, and exercise because I knew that way I could at least keep myself strong and nourish myself to the best of my ability at that cellular, granular level. The grieving did ultimately come. And with that came an invitation. Did I have the courage from these lessons, because Robert ultimately was my teacher? Did I have the courage to go on this emotional journey, that this was being asked of me to go deeper into myself, to explore the whole package of wellness? Because according to the World Health Organization, the definition of wellness is not just what we eat or how we move. It is also our emotional self-care. So how was I set up for that? And I wasn't. In fact, I wasn't at all. So I went into deep depression. I did a lot of fugly crying. And ultimately I found several things to help me on this path. And it would be a long path. I mean, I would rather do a heavy leg day workout, let me tell you, Helen, than some of what I had to go through. But it was the invitation. So I took it in the same way that Bob offered me a challenge to step on stage, something I'd never done in my life, and compete in bodybuilding. Bizarre. I I accepted this challenge. So I worked with spiritual healers, shamans. I went to Hawaii for several months, and I subjected myself to the emotional work I needed to do. Because you and I both know when we have a situation in life, that situation is presented to us for us. And the ask is, will you or can you become what is being asked of you? And through that experience, I had to learn things like patience and forgiveness and grieving and learning within myself what and who I was and what story would I tell. And I reached out for teachers who would help me make this walk because it is no easy walk. And that is ultimately the path that I have been on for these last 12 years.
Right, right. What helped you reestablish your identity after the loss of Robert and the magazine?
Uh, a couple things. First, I had to go through, it's going to sound so crazy, Helen, but a realization that I was no longer Oxygen Tosca. She had her day, and I had to bury her, grieve her, say goodbye, and I had to turn and have the courage to walk in a different path. That was number one. Number two, my children. I have four daughters. And I knew that whatever path I was taking, I needed it to be an exemplary path. I couldn't sit in a corner and cry or take up a vodka bottle. I needed to really dig deep and show them, when we are down, this is how we face the valleys and the troughs in our lives. And it's been a long, slow walk. So that. And then thirdly, community, because through this whole experience, my community has been incredibly loyal, and they have been asking, how are you? Can you help us with XYZ problems? And it's not a conversation anymore, Helen, about how carved your butt is or whether or not you have a six pack, as nice as that is. It's a conversation about how can I deal with the hardships of life, the end game of life, the illnesses, the injuries, the loss of parents, the grieving, the financial insecurity, and on and on and on. This is what I'm seeing in my clients now is it's not so much about the aesthetics of the physique, but the strength of the physique. So my community has really carried me on their shoulders for a long time.
That's that's fantastic. The community, especially at our age,
Yeah.
is everything. I preach that all the time. And speaking of that, let's pivot just a little bit and start talking about your midlife wisdom and like menopause, for example, because if you're working with clients, especially, now at our age, I mean,
Yes.
so everybody's going through menopause, different phases of menopause. Some women decide to be martyrs and suffer through menopause. Others decide that they don't want to suffer and do the HRT route. Um, Give me what your stance is on that and how that has affected you as far as menopause is concerned.
So I can only speak from personal experience. I'm not a doctor and I don't mitigate or cure disease, but I certainly know what my own journey has been like. And I will say that what I learned as a powerful teaching tool was just how important it is to manage nourishment. And I don't mean counting calories or restricting oneself. What I mean is to really look deeply at the foods that we're eating and ask, is this nourishing me? Is this something that is going to help my body go through this hormonal change of life? And what I realized early on was, and maybe the timing was perfect, I don't know, because I started with eating clean in my 40s and 50s. So I had 2 decades of really kicking it with clean food, and sugar was gone. And I had no menopause issues. And I realized, well, first of all, I can't say that out loud to any woman because she'll want to scratch my eyes out. Because menopause is, you know, she's a nasty character. She will come get you. But so to a great extent, that 80% nutrition that explains who we physically are every single day is critical, critical, critical. And so it was taking out all of the, sugars, refined flours, really eating those clean foods, lots and lots of vegetables, healthy fats. I never believed in not eating fat. I always ate good, clean fats. So that was one thing. But then I also learned, Helen, that women, maybe men too, but right now my focus is on women, is we need to train a certain way to keep this physical house in the right lane for the end game. So what does that mean? It means that we have to stay ahead of the metabolic changes that are happening to us.
Mm.
Women tend to be frightened about lifting a weight or squatting heavy. And I say we need to grasp the fact that as we age, your metabolism declines by 1.5%, right along with your collagen, every decade for, so we're starting from age 18. So we want to stay ahead of that curve, and that means that we're going to have to lift heavier, and we're going to be deliberate about our training, and that you want to activate the metabolic catalyst whenever you train. Well, what's the metabolic catalyst? It's the large muscle groups. It's your quads, it's your glutes, which are the biggest, and then your core. Put them all together, and literally, you need to be training them. To me, anyway, I have my clients train them every time we train. It's not just leg day one day and then forget about it. It's no, no, we got to work on these muscle groups. And I found that some of the best ways to do that is to incorporate kettlebell training, because kettlebells make your body the machine. You're the Nautilus machine, and you're also moving the weight. So it incorporates compound movements. It incorporates a higher metabolic rate. I call it high value exercise. So you can shorten or shrink your training time and get much more benefit from it. There's only three ways to achieve that kind of high value exercise training. Kettlebells is one, rebounding is another, and the other is doing underwater exercises with weights, which is not very accessible for most of us. So this is what I advise for women of, well, all ages, but particularly women of our age. And what I've realized is when we do this, we keep the foundation strong, because you can't build a foundation if it's built on a house of cards.
Mm. That's a great statement, and that whole philosophy is just fantastic. I love all that, and I'm sure your clients do too. And I'm sure also. I mean, what's the average age of your clients?
Ah, so right now, the youngest one is in her early 40s, and the oldest one is 81.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
even better. Yeah, I love
I
that.
love it.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm sure the 40 somethings are learning something from the 80 somethings too.
Well, they're paving the way. I always said that when I saw Jane Fonda doing her thing, right? To me, Jane Fonda sort of set the example about how to dress, how to be, how to think, how to behave. And she still puts in 12-hour days filming whatever she's filming at the moment. And
Yeah,
I have to say, why we have to be careful how we code our brains to think, because if we say, well, I'm going to be done and sitting in a wheelchair by 65, that's where you're going. But if you say, let me do a Jane Fonda and be strong and be filming and active and creative and never retiring, and I'm going to live till I'm 120, that's where you're going. You're vision casting.
yeah. No, I'm a firm believer in that too. I'm a firm
Nice.
believer in that also. Were there any surprises to you during this phase of life?
Well, I think the emotional skills required to survive the storm surprised me, because initially, when I finally got to a point where it seemed like the dust was settling a bit, and the bankruptcy was in place and I really wasn't allowed to work, it's a condition of bankruptcy. That was in 2014. I remember one day in summertime, my daughter coming to my home, and I was in bed in the middle of the afternoon, and I'm never in bed in the middle of any day unless I'm deathly ill. And she came in to see me, and mom, and I couldn't speak. I was catatonic. And she said, oh, you're going to need some help here. You have to start with some self-care, some meditation. You can't push through this one. And she's so wise, my daughter, Rachel. She's a naturopathic doctor. And we began with just a very small 10-minute meditation. She had to sit with me and hold my hand and keep me down, because I didn't think I had time for such things. But the world showed me through this serious knock on the head that yes, you can't speak, you can't think, you don't even know what you're doing next. This is time for you to sit up and take notice and listen, and you're going to start with the self-care. So that part really surprised me because I'm the kind of person who, I'm do. So I got this, right? I'm just going to charge right ahead. And I didn't got it at all. I was a mess. And then I learned the power of forgiveness, which didn't come for a while. First, I had to be good and mad, and I was, because I couldn't have that conversation with a deceased husband whom I loved and trusted. It was done. So now I had to carry the load by myself. But I learned forgiveness. I learned the ultimate liberation of forgiveness. And the other surprise was that I could alchemize the pain and the shock and the horror of what happened and the loss and the grief and alchemize it into beautiful lessons, which is the subject of the book that I'm writing now.
Oh, that's great. Um, what advice would you give women navigating this transition right now?
By transition, I'm assuming you mean change of life into what some people call the end game, or
Yeah, well, yes,
quote,
exactly. Yes,
quote
yes,
one of my clients.
yeah.
She says, Tosca, you just need to help me because, and I quote, I don't want to sit in a wheelchair and have somebody feed my face and wipe my ass. Pardon my French, but that's
Yeah.
what she said. So, what I would say here is what a beautiful gift it is to come to this stage of life, whatever stage you're in. Remember, I lost a child at age 24. Some of us have lost children earlier. So, here you are at this stage of life, and it is a rich tapestry, a rich school in which to learn about yourself and the direction you choose to take to go forward. So, beginning there. Secondly, don't do it alone. Don't do it alone because there's so much to this complex ecosystem that makes us human beings and sisters that the journey to go forward requires community. And this is what I build with my group coaching and my clean living mastery group, which are women who are going through challenges like this, who want to learn how to be in their strength, not necessarily with a dumbbell, but I hope so, but in their strength, their holistic strength, so they can take on whatever's coming at them, because it is going to come. So I say, don't hide your head under the sand. I say, reach out to you, Helen. You're perhaps offering coaching. I am. Reach out to your friends, look around you, notice what's going on, and say to yourself, I am worthy. Even now, I am worthy.
I think that's great advice. I know for me, I always tell people that when you're facing the second chapter of your life, I mean, to me, it can't help but be the best chapter because over the first 30 or 40 years, you've acquired all this knowledge,
Yeah.
all this wisdom from all the pain, the heartaches, the highs, the lows that you've gone through in your life. And now you are at that point in life where you can apply all of that to the next chapter of your life to make it the best chapter of your life. So that's, that's
And
that's my
I, I call these the legacy years. When we do legacy work, we leave behind something, whether it's tending a beautiful garden, creating a beautiful homescape, taking care of your physical body so that those grandchildren that you have can see what you've done, whether it's writing a New York Times best-selling book or winning IFBB pro shows. Whatever you do, make it your legacy work. Invest in it as if it were the most substantial thing you can offer this universe. Because we as human beings are co-authors. We are co-creating this human story. And no one story that you write or create or tell about yourself will not affect another. It's the butterfly effect. Whatever you say and do and feel is going to be felt thousands of miles away. So make it matter for yourself. Make your legacy work something you start today.
that's that's great advice. So I want to talk to you now about you've mentioned it several times, your clean eating series. I know
Yeah.
that you're known as the queen of clean eating. So how has your approach evolved over the years?
Well, I remember being on Dr. Oz actually in April of 2014 when he sort of dubbed me the Eat Clean Queen, the founder, which I am the founder of the Eat Clean Revolution. In the beginning, I ate to create a physique, to create a landscape outside of my body. Today, I use eating clean in a different way. I feel that, well, I know that the energy from the sun, we can't eat the sun. We can eat photons, we can eat the sun translated into plants, fruits, vegetables. And then that nourishment is encoded with information that the cells need within us to then do the job of communication and being and functioning as systems. We are a complex ecosystem. So eating clean has taken on, if you will, a whole new meaning for me in the sense that all nourishment is encoded with information. And it's just a question of what kind of information you are coding yourself with. Also, I don't look at food as, the same way as maybe others do. I believe there's a distinction between food, which we see in a grocery store, and I believe the difference is nourishment. So when we are nourished, there's a very different, you can feel the energy behind the word nourishment. It's an invitation to have a dialogue with whatever you're eating and your whole body. And that is very different to me than simply eating to create a six pack or a fantastic glutes. Um, the principles of eating clean, though, are time tested and true. They work. They absolutely work, and they partner very well with strike sugar. So taking those food items out, refined sugar, sugar products, sugar alternatives, white flour products, take them out and then eat clean using the principles. To me, it takes the guesswork out of how to understand feeding yourself today because it's complex out there. And
Mhm.
it's complex because we have food organizations that are trying to hoodwink us. We have to stay ahead of the game. So only this morning, it's an interesting experience. This morning, I was at the grocery store picking up a few things. And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to do my, 5 ingredients or under. And I didn't even have to try. And in a minute, I'm picking up a jar of nut butter. Well, what's in the nut butter? Just nuts. And then I pick up apple cider vinegar. Well, what's in the apple cider vinegar? Just apples. And then I pick up sauerkraut. And what's in the sauerkraut? Cabbage, sea salt, and water. That's it. And I just think to myself, this is much easier than we think. We're making things complicated, but it's not complicated. And to me, those principles that stand the test of time, that makes it a principle, are the ones that count. And that's why I know eating clean is a home run. It's a lifestyle. It is not a trend. It is something that will serve you for life.
No, I agree. And I think when I got into bodybuilding and I started eating clean now, even when I'm not in contest prep, I'm still eating clean.
Yeah.
I still count my macros. I still measure out all my food and do food preps, and I take all of my food with me on my trips when I'm flying. And so it's a total lifestyle. And, even on vacation, I let loose a little bit, but I'm
Sure.
still, in the back of my mind going, okay, I'm going to have this, but I'm pretty, 80% clean
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
even vacation.
Sure.
What are some myths that, I mean, there's some things I kind of, I hear stuff and I just shake my head, but some myths about clean eating or nutrition that kind of like drive you nuts or that you just want to be like, just bust it.
Yeah. Well, if you mean, myths associated with eating clean, I've had people say that eating clean is a body dysmorphia, and it is not because if it were a body dysmorphia, I would say, well, you need to be restricting and counting calories and, all that. And I don't. It's never that. It's nourish yourself. It's like this Olympian Ilona Mahar who says, you know what? I feel fed. I feel nourished. I feel strong. That's what
Yeah.
I want you to do. I want you to show up every day feeling like a powerhouse, not like I can't do this. So that's number one. There's no body dysmorphia here. It's just somebody trying to make a win out of a few hits on Instagram. It's not helpful. And also that eating clean is expensive is a myth too, because when you're buying less processed foods, you're literally buying the pure food, so it lasts longer, and no one can eat a 5 pound bag of beets in the same way that they can eat a whole bag of chips. Just get completely nourished very quickly with one
Yeah.
beet as opposed to a
Yeah.
whole. So, I don't buy that either. And then that it's restrictive. Well, it's not restrictive unless I'm saying, let's leave out the processed foods. It's not helping you. I mean, when you have literally 95% of the population metabolically unfit, and you got to imagine that the 5% who are fit are elite athletes. Most of us need help getting ourselves metabolically fit. So nutrition, and then we have rates of obesity, of overweight and obesity at about 75%. And then going along with all of that, you have ever trending higher rates of cancer, diabetes type 2, stroke, cardiovascular events, all of these types of illnesses. You need to change the story, and you can't change the story unless you change the intake and the information and how you process and view nourishment.
Right. Right. Are there any I know there are probably, but give me some of your non-negotiables when it comes to like your daily nutrition.
Okay. So when it comes to daily water, because water is the number one, or dehydration is the number one nutritional deficiency in North America, still is. And that is odd because everybody's carrying a water bottle. But here's the thing. What are all the dehydrating beverages you're consuming? So for
Mm.
every 8 ounces of a dehydrating beverage, you're supposed to consume 12 ounces of water to offset that. Okay, so you've got energy drinks full of sugar. Those are dehydrating. You've got juices, which are also dehydrating because they're also loaded with sugar. Caffeinated beverages. Think about Starbucks and a loaded, super ding dong coffee that you might order. That's dehydrating. Teas are dehydrating. Pharmaceuticals are dehydrating. Alcohol is dehydrating. So water is a non-negotiable. And I literally, because I'm a visual person, I need to see 3 mason jars, which are a liter or 4 cups each, filled with water. And those have to be done by the time the day is done. And I get my first one in before my feet even hit the ground. So I'm in bed and I look over, my jar of water is there, and down it goes, that first liter. And then things get moving real fast. Non-negotiable. Protein is another non-negotiable. If I want to manage, mitigate, or flatten the glucose response in my body and I want to amp up my metabolism, I need to make protein the anchor macro of my 4 to 5 meals that I'm going to have throughout the course of the day. Every meal has to have protein. The end. 20 grams of protein on average, at least 5 times a day. Maybe that's 100, 120 grams, depending on the person and the kind of workouts you're doing. So those are non-negotiable as well. And then every meal to me has to have a good either cup or 2 cups of green vegetables. So I need to see your asparagus, your broccoli, your leafy greens, kale, and then herbs. So I call this plant layering, where you have multiple plants and multiple opportunities to layer plant nutrition into your day. And you can do that not just with the vegetables and fruits themselves, but then you can add your spices. So black pepper and turmeric and cardamom and cinnamon and oregano and basil and all of that. Plant layering. Add these things so that you're just absolutely giving your body the optimal nutrients available to you. So those are the key ones. Those are really, if everything else were to go to
Yeah.
H in a handbasket,
Yeah.
those are the things that absolutely I would need.
Those are exactly my non-negotiables too,
Yeah.
especially protein. And I know that you know this, training women, A, they don't eat enough, and
No.
B, they don't eat enough protein. And so when I would put them on this new, program, they would, reach out to me, oh my God, I can't eat this much food, or this, I can't eat all this protein. And I'm like, yes, you can, and yes,
Doing
you
it.
will.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that after a week or a couple of days, all of a sudden they're feeling better, they have energy, and then they start to lose weight. And I'm like, I know it's crazy, but um, do you have any fun, like little go-to meals that you turn to when you're like on the go, or it's because you travel so much? I think I read somewhere what you're traveling 250 days out of the year,
Quite a bit.
speaking
Yeah.
engagements and stuff. So What do you like to pack? Is I want to hear this because being a flight attendant, I know I have my certain things that I like bringing with me on
Yeah.
trips.
Yeah. So I'm a big one for having pre-measured dry oats. And in the dry oats, I will put my protein powder and my dates and Brazil nuts. Have to have Brazil nuts. 3 Brazil nuts every day is your recommended daily allowance of selenium, which is difficult to get from most foods. So that'll be in there. Flaxseed, chia seed. Sometimes I'll put a little dollop of coconut oil for good, healthy fat because I know that when I take that little baggie and dump it into a cup and pour hot water on it, I'm going to have a decent meal there. So that's something I take along with me. If I can carry them, hard-boiled eggs, it's a little bit challenging because coming across from Canada to the US, I can't take very much, but I know I can get hard-boiled eggs at the airport. Also, my own tea bags, power balls, because they're prepared and I make them and I know what goes in them. And they give me the opportunity to at least keep protein in. I was just at a conference actually, and I brought a big bag of Brazil nuts, dates, tiny pieces of dark chocolate just for the occasional hit in there. And then I'll take along some green shake protein powder so I can get my greens and my protein in, even if I can only mix it in water. That will help me quite a bit. And collagen. I travel with collagen.
Yeah, I do the same. And
Yeah.
I'll bring protein powder with me, creatine with me. Oh, what are your thoughts on creatine?
Creatine is one of those things that is the few absolutely scientifically proven supplement additions that can help build and preserve muscle mass. I think for women, creatine is a valuable addition.
I agree.
Protein powder, let's be real, there's a lot of garbage out there. You have to do your
Hmm.
homework. Sure, you can ask Helen or me what our preferred ones are, but you have to be very, very careful because most protein powders are full of garbage.
Full of garbage. And it's kind of funny. I was able to eat any kind of protein or drink any kind of protein drink until my mid 50s. And then all of a sudden my stomach decided that it did not like whey protein powder anymore
Oh,
or pea. And then I recently discovered that I have a histamine intolerance and I
yeah.
was eating bone broth protein powder, which is loaded with histamines.
Yes.
So now I found a grass-fed beef protein powder, which I actually really like. And so, but yeah, it can be a little frustrating. And a lot of people will ask me my advice on protein powders, but I'm like, look at the back of the label.
Yeah.
I mean, that's clue. I mean, just like you said, there's a lot of junk out there, a lot of junk. So, what does your life look like today, and what fills you up?
So, life today, I'm a grandmother. I have 3 grandchildren, 4 daughters, because I adopted one, which is Robert's. When Robert passed away, his daughter was, even though she was my stepdaughter, was orphaned. So now I have 4 daughters. Every day is, I'm so blessed with beautiful clients that I coach. And coaching is not simply lifting weights in the gym. It is what I call transformational coaching. So it is taking women on a journey with me to close the gap on where they wish to be and where they are now. So that's what I think a good coach does. So and I'm blessed. Most of my mornings are taken up with that. I'm writing, so I'm writing my next book, which has been a challenge, but I'm doing it and loving it because I see myself as a repeat New York Times bestselling author. I do speaking engagements. Um, I exercise myself. I need to be in nature, so I'm out in the grass, sometimes with bare feet, just communing. I do a lot of my own cooking, so basic things like fermenting my own yogurt, making my own sauerkraut, making bone broth, and yeah, being with my family. Family is everything. Personal development, reading a lot of personal development books, studying, writing blogs. Right now, I'm renovating my website, so there's a lot going on.
Um, do you have any new dreams or goals that you're working towards right now?
Yeah, so one of them is, well, I just said to be a repeat New York Times bestselling author, to do a TED Talk. I'd like to declare
Mm,
that right there. I think a TED Talk would be a really fantastic step forward for me.
you would be awesome doing that.
Yeah, I think once I have the microphone in my hand, I'm good to go.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, and those are some goals that will keep me going. Yeah, and I want to really impact the lives of more women that I'm impacting now. So I need to improve my voice. I need to keep sharpening my tool, my instrument. And yeah, I see myself in a year's time being that repeat New York Times bestselling author, having the book in my hand. I see myself walking the path of leadership more fully than I walk it now.
That's very exciting. And I have one final question. If you could go back and tell your younger self one or two things, what might that be?
Trust your instincts, lady. You weren't wrong. Yeah. So there were times when Robert was still alive where I questioned him and I suggested things like, Bob, we could probably live a smaller version of the life we're living. I mean, we lived a very big life, homes, cars, blah, blah, blah. And I kept saying, wouldn't it be just great if we could just get a little place by the water and wake up every day and have our coffee and look out over the water and be together and write our stories? And wouldn't that be enough? So trust those instincts. And today I would say trust every instinct that comes into your brain because what I have discovered is the instincts or the thoughts or the message, the intuitive hits from the universe have been talking to me all along, and I ignored
Mhm.
them. So now I'm somebody who has to journal because in the journaling, I find a way to make concrete these intuitive hits that come. And that's sort of what I'm doing now. Even when I'm coaching clients, I'm intuitively led. And it's interesting to me how when that intuition is awakened, you can almost sense what a client needs before they say it themselves.
Wow. Wow. If people want to get a hold of you or try to find you or work with you, what's the best way to do that?
Thank you, Helen. I appreciate that. So very easy. I'm Tosca Reno, Tosca Reno. You'll find me anywhere on the social media platforms. My website currently is under construction, but we're going to be up in a day or maybe today, and that's also Tosca Reno. And if you can't remember any of that, either ask Chat GPT who I am or Google. I'm sure you're going to find me.
Oh, that's great.
And I
I
do welcome private one-on-one coaching as well as group, as well as nutrition assessments, because this is how I work belly to belly and make the greatest transformational healing processes happen.
well, this has been such a fun conversation. Like I mentioned in the beginning, that you were so instrumental to me in my earlier years with fitness, especially with Oxygen Magazine. So I'm very honored to have you on the show. If you ever come out to Scottsdale, please,
Yeah.
I would love for you to meet up with you. I have a nice big 4-bedroom house. If you need a place to stay, you can even stay here with me. It'd be fun.
Wow.
Um, but
Okay.
anyway, you've been a delight, and thank you for being such a wonderful guest. You've shed so much wisdom. When you mentioned a TED Talk, you have it. You're very magnetic, and your speaking style is fantastic. So, again, I greatly appreciate everything.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Helen, for creating and giving me the opportunity. And thank you to all those listening. Don't hesitate on your now moment. It's here.
Oh, I agree. And on that, we'll say goodbye.
To that great conversation with Tosca, and here are some takeaways I got from our conversation. Number one, your second chapter can be your strongest yet. Tosca reminds us that life after 50 isn't a decline, it's a powerful new beginning. Reinvention is possible at any age, and midlife is the perfect time to go after your dreams with clarity, confidence, and purpose. Number two, life happens for you, not to you. Whether it's loss, change, or challenge, every situation we face holds a lesson and an opportunity for growth. Tosca shares how life's hardest moments shaped her into the woman she is today and how we can all rise through adversity. Number three, exercise and nutrition are non-negotiable. In midlife, movement and nourishment aren't optional, they're essential. Tosca talks about how fueling your body with intention and staying active are the keys to maintaining energy, strength, and vitality well into your 60s, 70s, and beyond. And number 4, be proactive, not passive about your life. Waiting for, quote, the right time, quote, is a trap. If you want to thrive in your second act, you have to take the lead. Tosca encourages women to be bold, curious, and unafraid to rewrite the script of their lives starting now. If you'd like to get a hold of Tosca, you can reach her on social media at Tosca Reno. Her website was under construction right now. It might be up and running. You can always go to toscareno.com to check that out. And if you'd like to get a hold of me, you can find me at helen@ageisirrelevant.com. I so appreciate all of you for making this podcast successful and enabling me to interview all these amazing, motivational, inspirational women. And I hope to continue to do this for many, many months and years to come. If you like this podcast, please share. And if you're interested again in buying my book, it's on Amazon, Life Lessons from the Overhead Bin. And as always, I like ending this show saying, age truly is irrelevant. Bye-bye.